It usually happens by accident. You're scrolling back through old photos looking for something else, and then you find it. A picture of you from a few years ago. The haircut, the outfit, that caption you thought was so clever at the time. And before you can even think, your whole body reacts. Your shoulders tense, you make a face, maybe you actually whisper, "Oh no," out loud. You flip the phone face down like you've seen something you weren't supposed to. But here's the strange part. That was you. That was a real person you were genuinely proud to be at the time. So why does looking back at them feel almost physically painful? Why do we cringe so hard at our old selves? The answer says something surprisingly hopeful about how your mind actually works. So let's get into it. First, let's talk about what cringe even is. That flinch you feel isn't random embarrassment. Cringe is a form of social pain, and your brain processes social pain using some of the same regions it uses for physical pain. When you watch old you do something awkward, your brain flags it as a threat to your reputation, to how you're seen. And it does this even when the only person watching is you, alone in your room. Part of your mind can't quite tell the difference between "I embarrassed myself just now" and "I embarrassed myself 5 years ago." The alarm sounds either way. But that still doesn't explain why old you looks so foolish in the first place. And this is where it gets interesting. Psychologists have found something they call the end of history illusion. Here's the idea. If you ask people how much they've changed over the last 10 years, they'll tell you a lot. But if you ask them how much they'll change over the next 10 years, they say barely at all. At every single age, people feel like they've finally become the finished version of themselves. We can all clearly see how much we've grown, but we're strangely blind to how much growing we still have left to do. So when you look back at old you, you're comparing them to a version of yourself that feels complete and correct. Of course they look unfinished. You've quietly cast yourself as the final draft and turned past you into the rough one. The second reason is that you're judging past you with information they never had. This is a version of hindsight bias. Right now, you know how things turned out. You know that outfit didn't work, that the crush didn't like you back, that the confident thing you posted online was actually a little embarrassing. But past you didn't know any of that yet. They were making the best guess they could with what they had in the moment. Cringing at them is a bit like laughing at someone for not knowing the ending of a movie they hadn't finished watching. They simply couldn't have known. The third reason is the one that quietly haunts us the most. We assume everyone else remembers our most cringeworthy moments just as vividly as we do. This is called the spotlight effect. We feel like we're always on a stage, with a whole audience replaying our worst moments. But the truth is, other people are barely thinking about you at all. They're far too busy cringing at their own old selves. That awkward thing you said years ago that still makes you wince? Almost everyone who witnessed it has completely forgotten. The spotlight you feel is pointed at you by you. So if cringe feels this awful, what's the point of it? Why do we even have this? Here's the reframe that changes everything. Cringe is the feeling of growth. Think about it. You can only cringe at old you if you've become someone different, someone who now knows better. That flinch is your brain measuring the distance between who you were and who you are. And the harder you cringe, the more it means you've grown. If you looked back at yourself from 5 years ago and felt absolutely nothing, that would actually be the concerning part. It would mean you'd stood completely still. So the cringe isn't a sign that past you was a failure. It's proof that they did their job. They carried you here, awkward outfits and bad captions and all, to the version of you that finally has the wisdom to wince. And here's the part worth sitting with. The you that exists right now, feeling so sure you've got it finally together. Future you is going to cringe at this version too. And that's not something to dread. It's a kind of promise. It means you're not finished. It means there's still more of you waiting up ahead. So the next time you stumble onto an old photo and feel that flinch, try to soften toward that earlier version of yourself. They were doing their best with what they knew. They didn't deserve the harsh judgment. They deserved a quiet thank you, because they're the reason you're someone worth cringing away from today. If this made you look back on your own past a little more gently, subscribe, because the next video might just change the way you see yourself. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.